So the 3D file that I'm going to be printing today is called Smirking Yoda. That's something I got off of Thingiverse. And I've tweaked it a little bit to make the Yoda head off Thingiverse. So it's a little bit of a smirking face. First thing we're going to do is open Cura by Ultimaker. And this is the slicer that I use to be able to create the slicing so the printer can read it. And we'll just drag and drop the Smirking Yoda STL right into Cura. Now this has a variety of settings that you can do that will affect your print. Now up in the upper left you can see the file is loading. As the settings are right now, this would take about 3 hours and 14 minutes for this to print. So I'll show you what some of the settings can do as you adjust them that will affect your print time, also affect your print quality. This is set right now at 0.2. I'll change it to 0.3. Layer heights. Obviously the larger the layer heights, the faster it's going to be to print. Most things I do I set at 0.3. This is the heating settings here, the support, which I have set at none. And so with that 0.3 layer heights, this would take 2 hours and 15 minutes. This is where overhangs would be. I'm not too worried about these overhangs. I know that my printer can handle all the overhangs on this STL. In fact, I designed them and changed them slightly so I knew that my printer will be able to print it without any overhangs and without any support needed. So I'm going to change this to 0.2. I'd like the detail to be a little bit higher for this print. And you'll see how it affects the print times. Right now it's at 2:15. 2 hours and 15 minutes at 0.3. Once I change it to 0.2, it's going to go up significantly. Now it's at 3 hours and 22 minutes. I also changed the top and bottom thickness being 0.2 millimeters. I want that to be divisible by 0.2. So at 0.8 millimeters of thickness, that's going to be 4 layers for the bottom, 4 layers for the top. And now that puts it at 3 hours and 14 minutes. I like most of my prints to be done within about 2 hour time periods. So I'm going to adjust the scale. If I unlock the uniform scale and then change the settings, that's going to affect the different dimensions of the print. So I want to make sure if it's a model of something, I leave that uniform scale locked, just like this. And then I can reduce it down to either 0.8 or 0.9. In this case, I'll do 0.9 and we'll see how that affects the time. So it's going to be 90% of its original. And that brought it to 2 hours and 26 minutes. So I'm going to make it just a little bit smaller. We'll go to 0.85. And now that takes it to 2 hours and 8 minutes. That's about right for me. I like most of my prints to be done in about 2 hours. So I'm at 0.2 layer heights. My shell thickness is 1.2 millimeters. And what the shell thickness is it creates the wall thickness on the outside of the print, and that's going to be 1.2 millimeters in thickness. That's this area right here. In my case, it's 3 loops around the print. My print head is 0.4 diameter, so times that by 3 and I get 1.2 millimeters. My bottom thickness is 0.8 millimeters. That means it's going to lay 4 solid layers down. Each layer going to be 0.2 millimeters in height. And 4 of those layers is going to put it at 0.8 millimeters. And that can be adjusted as well. I can make that as thick or as thin as I'd like, down to 0.2 millimeters. Then you can kind of trace up through the whole print. You can see all the cross hatching that's going to be in there. That's going to be filled at a 15% fill density. And that could be adjusted if I needed this to be a stronger model. I could do up to 50% or even 100%. Usually, if I'm going to do that, I'll put it at about 10 to 15%. Usually I find is sufficient. This is showing what the support setting does. And this will put material underneath areas where the print is going to be overhung. In this case, it automatically fills it under the chin, under the ears, inside of the ears, with with a material, the same material that's a support, so the actual model has something to lay on. In this case, I know that my printer can handle all the supports that are present, and so I'm not going to put any supports, and that'll create a little bit cleaner of a model. When I'm done, I won't have to clean anything up. The last thing I'm going to show you is under expert settings. If I hit open expert settings, I always put a skirt around all of my prints, and what this is, it's some lines that go on the outside of the print on the first layer. In this case, I do 2 loops around at a distance of 2 millimeters from my print, and it's going to extrude a minimum of 50 millimeters. And that's this area right here. You can see this blue line that traces around. That's 2 rings around the print because I set the count at 2. If I change it to 4, it'll have to reload the model. And you can see now there's 4 lines there around the print. So I find 2 is usually sufficient. That lets me make sure my print bed is level, that the filament's coming out evenly, and just to make sure everything's flowing correctly. So my print time is going to be 2 hours and 8 minutes with all those settings. We'll go ahead and hit save to SD. I'm going to save the G-code just onto my desktop. I already saved it as a previous one, but I'll just resave over the top of it as the Smirking Yoda G-code. Save that, replace it. Now here's the G-code file, and that's ready to go and load on my SD card and load into my printer to 3D print. I'll show you how that's done. Okay, today I just wanted to show some of the things that I do to help set up a printer so I can get a successful print. First thing, to make sure my SD card is placed into the screen here. This is what my G-code is on in order to get the print, so the printer knows where it should move the head. Make sure I plug that in, card inserted. I'm going to go to the prepare and hit auto home. When I do that, I'm going to put my screen down here so you can kind of see what the printer itself is doing. I'll hit auto home. It's going to move the print head all the way down to the 0 position until it hits the sensor, and it moves the bed back into position as well. So now it's set at 0. You can see it from below here. It's all the way down at the level of the print bed. You see that better. A little bit extra goober there from before. Take that off. So next thing I do is I'm going to heat my print head up. Go back to prepare. Preheat to PLA. This has specific settings in the program. It'll set the print head to 180 and the bed temperature to 60 degrees. I know that I usually print at 210, so I can go into prepare. Oh, not prepare. I can go into control, hit temperature, click on the nozzle temperature. I'm going to take that up to where I normally print at, which is 210. And then my bed temperature, typically I have it set around 50. So now it tells you the current temperature of the head and where it's planning on going, as well as the bed temperature itself. And before I print, I want to make sure that I put some hairspray onto my print bed here. So I'm going to unclip it. take my glass screen off. I always print on glass because it's a very flat surface to print on. And I tend to use this. This is Suave Extreme Hold Hairspray. Now, I usually do this in my hand, but because I'm trying to film this, I'll just show it right on this chair here. I'm just going to give a gentle coating of hairspray onto the glass. You can kind of see that that's got a coating of hairspray on it now. Put it back in place. And we'll clip it back in place. So now, my bed temperature is up to 210. Or my hot end is at 210, my bed temperature is 34, and I'm probably about ready to get ready to start printing. I usually don't let the bed heat up all the way. It can continue to heat up as you start to print, and it'll still work just fine. So now, in order to get my, you'll notice here, I can move usually the stepper motor will be activated. Deactivate the stepper motor, just hit disable stepper motors like this, and that'll let you move this bed back and forth, and it'll let you move the head back and forth as well. Now, this is probably the most important step of 3D printing, is getting your bed level so that your first layer of the print ends up printing correctly. You can see I've got some filament stringing out of my head here. I'm actually going to extrude some filament just by pushing down on this little lever here and forcing the filament through. I'll see if I can. And I'll show what's happening down at the head here. As I force that filament through, it'll just gently feed it through there. I want to make sure my nozzle isn't clogged, that the filament is coming out nice and straight and one even consistency, and it's not deviating from side to side. It should come straight out the tip. So my hot end has been primed, and I'm ready to start my print. So to level the bed, I want to make sure, I'm going to pull my bed out about halfway here. And then I want the head to just barely, in this case it's just barely touching the, let me see that, just barely touching the glass bed as it goes side to side, which is okay. Then I go front to back. I'm watching it to make sure I can see that it is just barely off of the print bed, and I do that in all 4 directions to make sure my bed is nice and level. And you can see on the top here, it's left a little trail. Filament. You can't see that very well. I'll just go and peel that off before I start the print. Now if I have to make any adjustments there, I would spin these little knobs, and that would raise and lower the print bed. And you could do it on all four corners until you get that extremely level, so that your print head is just a paper's thickness above the print bed at all locations. Now, to start the print, I'm going to locate my file here on my SD card. We'll hit print from SD card. Go find the smirking Yoda, which I loaded on there earlier. And then as long as my heat settings are all up to the correct settings, the printer will just start. First thing it usually does is home itself. Just like that. And then it starts printing. Now, you notice on the right hand side I'm twisting my Z-axis just a little bit. If I notice that the print head is just a tiny bit off, or it's not printing quite level, I can adjust those. I can just spin those Z-axes just a little bit, click it one magnet over, and it'll barely raise and lower that print head until I get it printing nice and smooth and even. I find that I often do that for my prints. Just slightly adjust the Z height by twisting the Z-axis as the print is going, and that allows me to make sure everything is nice and level and even for the first layer. The first layer is probably the most important layer to get right. If you get the first layer right, then it's easy for the rest of the print to go right. But if there's problems with the first layer, it's better just to stop the print and make sure things are level and even before trying to go on. I'm going to stop this, and then we'll take a look at the first layer here. And just so you can see what a good first layer should look like. And if the first layer looks like this, then you can go ahead and let the print finish. And it's likely you'll have little problems with it later. But if there are problems with the first layer, it's just better to stop the print and start over. I'm going to disable the steppers because I couldn't move the print bed. And now once I do that, now the print beds can slide out. You can see that ring around the print. That's the skirt that went around first. I'm going to go ahead and peel that off. This is the skirt that's around the print. This is what you want your first layer to look like. And I stopped it so I could show you what this looks like. You want a really even thickness, a nice smooth top layer, and that to me is saying that my print bed is level, the film is being laid down evenly, and the rest of the print should be successful. But this first layer is really your most important layer to make sure you get right. If you get the first layer right, it's real easy to get the rest of it right. So I'm going to go ahead and restart this. I'm going to do a time lapse of it and allow you to see it as the print slowly comes off the bed. As it starts to build, you'll see that in a time lapse. With hairspray on it, I'll show you how well the print sticks to the print bed. the back of it there. It's still stuck on there pretty well, even after 2 hours of printing.